what I've done, because I've only been on Blab for maybe about 28 days or so. I mean, the platform hasn't even been out for very long, but I got sucked into it because of the ability to just bring people on, and the barrier to entry was so nice. Just get on. You've got people that can watch and interact. If someone joins into the conversation in a few minutes and they want to take one of the open seats, we can bring them in and they can, meet you and ask questions. It's been such a great platform, but I've been periscoping them so that other folks who maybe aren't on Blab can be introduced to it.
Well, very cool.
Yeah. So Mark, thank you so much for taking time out. I know you said you were at a retreat earlier today with your staff.
Yeah. I'm CMO of the Syracuse Rescue Mission and also founder of Invisible People. And we've found that if you get out of the office, oh my gosh, it's wonderful. Just for brainstorming. So we try to do it. We're going to do it at least every quarter.
Nice. So I appreciate it. And this is a gift that you would even give us some of your time. So I very, very much appreciate it. And for those of you who are just joining us, I see that Colleen, Lene, and Sarah just joined. This is the Good Blab. Ooh, see, high tech. There we go. The Good Blab. And we talk every Friday morning at 10:30 California time with folks who have made an impact on me, or who have are doing good or disruptive or innovative good in our world. And I just wanted to introduce them to my Blab friends, but then also I kind of wanted my do-gooder friends to kind of get familiar with the technology too, because it's kind of fun. So, Mark, so today our guest is Mark Horvath. I don't know if you can see that. Is that high enough? Yeah. So Mark Horvath, Hardly Normal. Mark, I think I was going to try to remember when I met you. Was that back in maybe 2009?
Yeah, I was at the first idea camp.
Okay, so that's where it was, and that's where I was introduced to you. And for people that may not know about Invisible People, can you explain, because I definitely want to fast forward to the cool things that you're doing now, but for folks who may not be familiar with Invisible People, would you mind just sharing a word?
Sure, not at all. Invisible People is a unique digital storytelling nonprofit where we empower homeless people to share their own story. The main site is invisiblepeople.tv. There's 13 webisodes. There's a documentary on PBS about my work. And you can find 13 webisodes at invisiblepeople.tv/movie. I recommend number 2 if you only have time to watch one. The second one brings in Housing First as a model that is very, very awesome. Invisible People has had huge impact. And where do you go? Oh, something happened with my computer. Invisible People has had huge impact. I mean, YouTube gave us their homepage for a day. That's not even possible anymore. First cause to speak at Twitter. Canadian government had us go to 24 cities in Canada. There's individual stories of Donnie, who is Calgary, Canada, homeless on the streets for 21 years, that the community rallied after the YouTube video and got him into housing, to where whole communities have changed. And, here it is 4 years later, and let's say 300 cities in 7 different countries doing this. The good part is lots of impact changing awareness, educating people on homelessness and poverty. The bad part is awareness is nearly impossible to fund. And people, because I just make YouTube videos, it's hard to get private donations. So there's never, I used to lose sleep over it at night, but it's been really impossible to scale, and I've always had to have a second job. It might want to think it's my hobby. Yeah, in a way. And, so there's some good changes coming up next year. We're going to bring it current. One of the things I believe in storytelling that we as nonprofits have to be aware of is virtual reality. And so we're going to be hopefully doing some things in the virtual reality space and some other things that are pretty darn cool, trying to bring invisible people current, because everything changes, and if you don't change, you will go the way of 8-track tapes and records and cassettes and all that other stuff. So my other job is I'm the Chief Marketing Officer. I'm honored to be the Chief Marketing Officer for the Rescue Mission of Lions of Syracuse, and we have services in Syracuse, Auburn, Ithaca, and Binghamton, which happens to be my hometown. And we also operate 15 thrift stores around central New York that actually brings in 60% of our revenue to help us feed and house and clean, and end homelessness. I mean, I know I was somebody who used to say, oh my gosh, I don't want people to sell the clothes, but now I see how selling the clothes really helps to end homelessness and poverty and is a very good thing. Now, as a marketer, I get to do more point-of-sale marketing instead of cause marketing, and that's a lot of fun, and it's a wonderful team we have here. So they do all the work, and it's pretty amazing.
So you, how many years, you were in traditional, I want to say in the entertainment industry for years and years. That's where you kind of got your marketing background, right, Mark? Was that?
Well, being a little bit vulnerable, I think my first marketing and business education came from dealing drugs.
Oh, really? Okay. A chapter is done.
Because I have 20 years sober now. I was homeless myself, and before that, I had a great job in the television industry. But I also I started dealing drugs at a young age, and supply and demand. And at 17, I started a record label and a publishing company. Lost my shirt. If I was sober, I probably maybe would have done something. But back then, I was a little bit crazy. But I learned a lot about how to, back then I was promoting music, promoting bands, trying to see what, people like, what people don't like, how to build community, all the above. So long to short, I ended up moving to Los Angeles from Binghamton, New York, and I ended up working in the television industry quite by accident and worked myself up, but it was logistics. I was the guy who, I ran a vault, I ran a shipping department, I ran the, I didn't do the sales of syndication. Basically, if you watch Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, Married with Children from 1990 to 1994, anywhere in the world, I had something to do with getting it to the TV. So it's not the sexy TMZ stuff that you see in Hollywood, because believe it or not, and I know, Dawn, you hang out in LA, there are people that work. So it's on the manufacturing side, not the partying side, and there was a lot of people. So
you made stuff happen there.
Yeah, I actually, interesting enough, I lied on a resume and was hired as a traffic supervisor, and 2 weeks later they fired my boss and gave me the traffic manager job, and that just ended up working where I ran 75% of the 10th largest broadcast network at the time. That whole industry, I ran a mass duplication lab for VHS tapes, and I haven't seen a VHS tape since the last time I moved and opened the boxes in my closet. So a lot of that whole industry doesn't even the way that it has a lot to do with bandwidth and everything else. The way that television is distributed, the signal itself is completely changed. Whole industry has changed.
Wow. So I think, Mark, one of the things when I first met you that really impressed me, and I'll just say, to be honest, challenged me. I think we were having dinner at a rest, like Rock Bottom Brewery or something in Long Beach after an ideation conference. I don't know if you remember that. We were sitting outside, on like kind of the tables that are along the sidewalk. And we were having a conversation like after a conference with all these people deep into each other's, changing the world statements. And I remember you stopping and jumping over the fence and leaving the table and chasing down a gentleman that had walked by our table. And I thought, what is this guy doing? And then I kind of stood up and I looked down there, and you were sitting down. I think you'd even sat down on the sidewalk and you were having a conversation with a gentleman. And I think it was at that point that I had never seen someone do that. That if for people that are tend to be invisible in most of our lives, the dignity and friendship that you just immediately offered someone like that, I think that was one of those like life, for me, it was disruptive, I'll say. So just say thank you, for that kind of example.
Thank you. I do remember going there. I don't remember the actual incident that you're describing, but I do remember being at that brewery with all of you guys, because it's the only time I've been in a Rock Bottom, I believe, and we were sitting outside. I think the number one thing that we can give anybody is our positive attention. And when you're on the streets, you're, for whatever reason, and there's a ton of them, and it's a very complex issue, you're ignored. And so if you can give somebody, so often when I'm out doing my invisible people stuff and I'm handing out socks, you'll just meet people that they'll talk your ear off, and they have the most wonderful stories. And you just sit there and go, gosh, they probably haven't had anybody to talk to in such a long time, so it's I believe it's very important to start giving people back dignity.
Right. So, and I think, Mark, for, it's actually for someone who grew up, I'll say, kind of over churched. I'll just say that's part of my background. That whole dignity piece was missing. That whole piece was, what I was raised was that you go rescue people, you go, go those. They're almost like, it's like almost a patronizing, but I didn't realize it. If you're in the middle of it, you don't realize you're seeped in that. So I think that's what was so profound for me, was to get to see meet people like you, meet people like Greg Russinger and Mike Wright, other folks who are able to teach other people how to share that dignity with people without making them feel like idiots. I think.
Yeah.
So and really, you never really got in my face and said, you know what, Dawn, how you're treating people is probably less than ideal, and you might actually be contributing to the problem of taking people's dignity away by being patronizing. Like, you never said those words, but I think your example of modeling that is like, wow, what's he doing? Oh, wow. I think, anyway, I just had to throw that in, that was, there's a lesson there of changing behavior when we model it.
Oh, there very much so is. And, I really, homelessness is a very complex issue. And, say if you're walking down the streets and there's a street person. Well, first off, I believe everybody needs grace on both sides of this conversation. But not all, I always try to acknowledge the person as a human being and, say hi, good morning, how are you? But there's times when I'm really busy. It's one of the funny sidebars is like if I'm at a conference and we're all walking down the street and there's a homeless person, everybody looks at me, what's Mark going to do? What's Mark going to do? And I'm like, can I get a day off? You know what I mean? And I don't mean it flippantly like that. But the point that I'm trying to make that is there's times when I'm too busy or I'm in a hurry. I just really, just don't have the emotional energy to stop by. And that's one of, if you have the emotional energy that you can spend with another person, and as our buddy Greg always says, is, be present with them, then you do it. But if you can't, you shouldn't feel guilty about that either.
Right.
I mean, we have a lot of stuff going on. I mean, we ignore people in the elevator. Thank God for iPhones, so I have something to look at when I'm in a elevator anymore. You know, so
Yeah.
I think it's not just a homeless issue. It's how we treat other humans. Rarely, I like to say what I've been talking about now is. It's interesting. I don't mean to be transitioning a little, but 5 years ago, I was really big on social media. And now I'm talking about this new social media network called Two Chairs and a Table. And it's really awesome to sit across the table from somebody and have a human interaction. And don't get me wrong, I believe social media is too, but especially in the fundraising aspect, when you're trying to build donors, supporters, volunteers, I really, really stress the importance of taking it offline and having a face-to-face, cross-the-table conversation with somebody.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's a real loss when people just are comfortable here in the online and aren't comfortable, in offline and being able to have those kinds of conversations. And I think this can be a great entry, something like this. I mean, being on Blab for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, there are people that I've met that I can kind of hear their heart, resonating through either their questions or things. And if I'm ever traveling to Phoenix, or if I'm ever traveling to Chicago, I know people that I would love to treat to a cup of coffee. Because I've gotten just like a little sampler of who they are. So, but yeah, I love that, Mark, because you were pretty innovative, I'll say, in using Twitter back in the day. Really, really innovative in terms of, welcome, James. We're here talking with Mark Horvath. I'll go ahead and put that part up back again. One of the things I loved that I know that you were very involved in was not just getting on social media to get your name known or to share your bagel that you just ate or some nonsense, but your usage of the medium really had a purpose. Was that on purpose? Was that thought out, or was that just your gut?
Well, if you go back to the original start and how Hardly Normal, and I've only shared this one other time publicly in a broadcast. So I originally started, and the whole Hardly Normal name came because Brad Hebert, who many of you may remember or may know, just a brilliant marketer in the Christian space, and a great friend and huge mentor of mine, and he was interviewing for a marketing manager for the Foursquare denomination, which I took very, very seriously. One, because my house was going into foreclosure and I needed a job. And two, this was working with Brad Hebert. And three, you're marketing manager for 55,000 churches, which I took very serious, both spiritually and professionally. So I wanted the gig. And Brad was on Twitter, which I think is funny because he got me addicted to Twitter and now he doesn't tweet. So the irony of it all. But so I was trolling his feed, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to start an account, but I don't, because he was tweeting, I interviewed this guy, I interviewed this person, and so I started an account, but I didn't want him to know it was me. I didn't want to use my real name. So back many years ago when I played drums for a living, my stage name was Hardly Normal. And obviously I love Animal is my second favorite drummer. So I just used that and started it. So then I started traveling. Well, he hired me. And I had to drive from St. Louis to Los Angeles. And I figured, I really, honest to God, I said, Twitter is dumb. I'll never be twittering. And since I got this account, let's see. And so my background is response television, where you have to tell some kind of a story that leads to a call to action. And what I decided to do was, some people call it life casting. Some people, there's different names for it. At the time, I called it reality twittering. And I would give incremental little bits as I was traveling And people go, where are you going? What's going on? You know, we call it the lean-in effect. It's one of the reasons the helicopters work so good in Los Angeles, is it's not a whole lot of production cost, and everybody's waiting for the end. You're leaning in, you know what I mean? So it's like, what are you doing? Where are you going? What's going on? And I saw the potential as a marketer for it to build community and for it to actually go to a call to action. Then when I started Invisible People, lucky enough, I mean, Brad has had a big impact on me. There was a book in his office called Finding Grace. And it was a black and white coffee table book of homeless people. And I said, gosh, I could do this in video. And what was really interesting, a little nugget I'll share right now, and only he knows this, is that I asked Brad if I should start a video blog on homeless people. And he didn't answer me. And I respected Brad so much that if he had said, no, it's a dumb idea, I would have never done it. And I realized later on that I put too much into one person. And I still respect him and everything. And the point I'm trying to make is if you have a good idea, don't listen to anybody. Just do it. You know, pull the trigger, repair, you know, get it out there and see if it works. So then Brad laid me off. At the time, Foursquare had to lay off 50 people, and I was the last hired, so that means the first one out. And so now I had the time, but I also, at the time, I had lost my workstation, my Avid workstation. Back then, Avid was the primary software for cutting video. So I just looked at, I had this idea, I don't know how to do it. To me, being a television guy and a storyteller, response television, video has to have B-roll and graphics and music, but I couldn't do that because I couldn't edit video. And one day I just said, you know what, I'm going to just do it. I'm just going to put this video up there. And that was the magic. Authenticity has replaced production value. And that's what attracted people to these videos. I think we have to be very conscious as nonprofits. We need to be telling these stories, but we're also always spinning them for fundraising angle, and we always need to be fundraising. I'm not saying any of this is bad, but we also have to be very cautious because we sometimes overproduce them, and they come across almost as an entertainment video instead of something that's really is supposed to grip your heart and change the world. Invisible People videos are proof of that because they are not, and people watch them, and it's just amazing.
And I think what happened to that? Let's see. Am I frozen? Because you're fine now. You were frozen for a second.
No, I don't see you at all. I see a silhouette.
Oh, I can still see you.
I'm sorry.
You might need to, do you need to refresh yours? Okay.